So I won't be seeing you again till Monday. Since I won't be seeing you till Monday, I just want to give you the large jury instruction I gave you, and I'll try to give you on each Thursday evening just to remind you, since I won't see you for 3 days, okay? So remember, it's the court's instruction to you, the jury, that you.
So that is basically the end of the day there in Fairfax, Virginia. As you heard the attorney say, he's got quite a bit more to go. She asked, could you finish up today? He said, no, I have a lot to go, and he's not even sure how much that or how long that might go, depending on, I guess, how the cross-examination goes. So let me bring in my guest for this hour. Criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor David Bruno is with us, and former federal prosecutor and former Department of Justice senior attorney Tammy Allison is with us as well. Thank you both for joining me this evening. It's been a very eventful day, obviously, on cross-examination. We had been warning our viewers, both myself and my colleagues here at Court TV, that cross-examination was going to be a little bit different than direct examination. I think it certainly turned out that way. David, let me start with you. Your thoughts on how cross-examination has gone so far.
Yeah, to your point, I mean, this is how the cases go. I'm a litigator. I'm a former homicide prosecutor. I do domestic violence cases. And when you first hear the direct examinations, you get one side of the story. And in this particular case, and a lot of the commentators have been talking about the nature of that direct examination, where he was able to just go. I mean, there weren't many direct examination questions in between. He had narratives, and he was allowed to just elaborate and articulate in this very, very methodical and slow way. And now you see the cross-examination. The cross-examination is leading. They're leading questions. They're questions that really demand yes or no answers. And this particular attorney has just exhibit after exhibit after exhibit to show a different side of things. We have text messages from Depp to Amber's father. We have recordings, we have videos, we have journal entries. So what they're doing now is they're showing a different side of that direct examination that we saw the other day, and really starting to show him he's an addict, he's got problems. There were some answers where he talked about being not in control and how normal that is. It's almost primitive. So we're seeing the different side, and to me, I'm just seeing discord on both sides. I mean, this is a case where I'm seeing that Amber could be the aggressor on one day and John could be the aggressor on the other. And this is a very, very just detriment. It's a very, very hostile relationship that's coming out today.
Yeah, that cannot be disputed. That is certainly the case here. The question is, how much does that matter, right? At the end of the day, what's going on here is Johnny Depp a wife beater or not? Not so much the actions of Amber Heard. Tammy Allison, let me get you in the conversation. What I'm seeing here is, to Dave's point, that there's this list of exhibits that the attorneys for Amber Heard are going through, and I see it so far as being death by 1,000 cuts.
I think you're right. He has this list of exhibits because Johnny Depp was just talking with no objections in a narrative format. And typically, we hear defense object to those type of things. But now we see that, Amber's attorney was very strategic. He was taking notes, Michael. He was taking notes, writing the exhibit numbers down for everything Johnny said. Because of the fact he took the stand, he opened himself up to this type of cross-examination. And I do think that we've already seen at this point of the cross-examination that what we are here for in this Fairfax court, this is Johnny Depp's lawsuit against Amber Heard for defamation because of her op-ed in the Washington Post saying that she was a survivor of domestic violence. Well, from them videos we seen today, it looked like he kind of lost his case.
Dave, what Tammy mentioned, the fact that they were letting him talk, they weren't making many objections on direct. They were even allowing him to talk a little bit earlier in the day on cross-examination. Later in the day, they seemed to have a little more control over him as a witness. Your thoughts on the advocacy as far as that on the cross-examination?
Rule number one in cross-examination, don't let the witness dictate the conversation. Lead, get yes and no answers, especially when you have exhibits. Especially when you have exhibits, you want to control that witness. And to your point, Michael, first of all, direct examination, completely different, even more so than a normal direct examination where the witness has to answer open-ended questions. But for cross-examination, That's where the attorneys really make their money. That's the best of the best, is able to control the witness with cross-examination questions. And look, the way I look at it as a cross-examiner, I want to know the facts better than the witness. You really have to get into the weeds. You have to get into the background. You have to know the record better than the witness to be an effective cross-examiner. And we saw that a little bit later in the day. Johnny was able to get ahead of the attorney early on, but better cross-examined cadence for the attorney later in the day for sure.
Let me just ask you this quick question, Dave, before I go back to Tammy. Did you have any issue with the fact that they weren't making Johnny read his own texts? Oftentimes, that's a tactic used by defense attorneys. They want the jury to hear it in the words of the person on the stand. Here, they weren't doing that.
Yeah, I think it was effective the way he was doing it because he's able to control the cadence. He's able to control the tone and specific emphasis on areas. I mean, that's really up to the litigator as to how. And again, when you are cross-examining, you want control. So I don't fault the attorney for reading the text messages. I think there's a reason to do it and give it to Johnny Depp because it comes from him, but also you're giving him more control in the way that he reads it, and maybe even he tries to throw some explanations in as he reads it. So I think there's reasons for both sides.
Yeah, fair enough. Good point there. Tammy, for you, I want to see if there's any way back for Johnny from this. I mean, I was suggesting earlier in my last hour that redirect may help with some of this. You could see there were times during certain questions that he wanted to explain, wasn't allowed to explain, was cut off. Certainly on redirect, he'll be given that opportunity, but is there really any way back for him at this point?
On redirect, he'll be able to respond and elaborate, but even here with this cross, I do think that the defense attorney is being very strategic with letting Johnny interrupt, letting him show his character, and it's a little controlling. Even whenever the attorney was reading parts of a text message about what else he could do with her throat, he said it twice, and Johnny goes, "Do you want to read it again?" And we heard the courtroom chuckle. So on redirect, yes, he'll be able to just show more of his personality, which so far, it doesn't look like it's going to be great. The only way that I think he can come back is if they have some type of smoking gun video like Amber Heard did that shows her doing something crazy. But at the end of the day, I don't know. This cross-examination kind of ruined his case, in my opinion.
Yeah, that a lot of people feel the same way. I want to listen to a little of the cross-examination here. He's talking about Amber being disparaged and bad things being said about Amber. Let's take a quick listen.
You text Mr. Bettany, "Let's burn Amber," 3 exclamation points, right? You see that?
I do see that.
You say, "Let's drown her before we burn her," 3 exclamation points. After you said, "Let's drown her before we burn her," Mr. Depp, you said, "I will her burnt corpse afterwards to make sure she is dead." That's what you said that you would do after you burned her and after you drowned her. Did I read that right?
You certainly did, yes.
And you wrote that about the woman who would later become your wife.
Yes, I did.
April 9th, 2015,
Yes.
while you were married to Miss Heard, you texted someone named Sis, which may be her sister, you testified.
Yes.
You said, "I'm all right. I ... though I never, ever want to lay eyes on that filthy whore, Amber A., most embarrassing." Did I read that right?
Yes, you did.
And when you called Amber that filthy whore, she was your wife at the time, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, Dave Bruno, with the exception of one piece of tape where I think we can hear Johnny Depp saying that he had butted her. Now, he wanted to explain what had happened, and he got a little bit of it in. I'm sure he's going to be able to do much more of that on redirect. The rest are all innuendo. He's dancing around the fact that he hurt her feelings, he hurt her. One could certainly interpret that as being with words. It certainly wasn't an admission that he would have hit her or physically abused her in any way. Any sense at all that that might be an area where Johnny could come back from some of these things that we're hearing and seeing?
Oof, I'll tell you what. I mean, saying that you're going to burn her and drown her. I mean, obviously he didn't mean it in a sense that he's actually going to kill her, but it's smoke. I mean, to your point in the last hour, talking about the smoke, I mean, that's going to be a tough explanation using words like that. That filthy WHORE, right? We just heard that, and you saw him chuckle, like almost like that was funny, right? So while he was able to score points on direct examination, he does not help himself when those words are coming out. He's talking about his wife, or even before he was married to her, in this way. And really, it's tough to come back from in the direct examination for redirect examination. But it's really the smoke that starts to come up and say, wow, you know, does this support the type of person that he really is? Support Amber's allegations? And I think that's where it damages him the most.
Absolutely. When you got a jury who's trying to decide who's telling the truth, with all that negativity on his side, it just makes it more likely that her stories might be true. And that's really what this is all about. All right, Tammy, Dave, stand by. We're going to take a break. When we come back, along with abuse allegations, Depp's substance abuse problems are a key part of this trial.